Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl, Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we decode the art and science of building a thriving coaching business. Let's see what's in store today with none other than the legend himself, Karl Bryan, and of course, yours truly, the road dog, Shoots, double hernia survivor, back on the mend. What's happening, buddy?
I am Shoots. I am. We're on the mend. I still got about a month to go, man. Got to wear this silly stomach brace that is driving. And I didn't wear it yesterday, by the way. And let me tell you, all of a sudden I started feeling something. Got about 100 stitches in my stomach. Not fun. But anyhow, but it's all good, Shoots. I'm on the mend, man. I'm almost there.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When you just said that you were wearing, I was fully expecting to hear a diaper. I don't know why. Like I don't know. It's just one of those things. I don't know. It's your stomach, all sorts of things. But there you are. Shoots, good for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, that said, you have not been swimming with. I was gonna say swimming with the sharks. That was a fantastic book, by the way. Swimming with the dolphins. You have not been seeing your friends lately.
I have not, buddy. 10 days, 2 more weeks, and then I'll be rocking in the event that I feel all healed up, so I could. Anyways, that's what's happening, Shoots. That's what's going on in my world.
Well, so in the theme of Harvey McKay, I believe, was the author of Swimming with the Sharks, They'll Be Eaten Alive, and that was all about hiring. I do want to just do another quick format here, short, sweet, sharp answers, to the point. I'm going to throw some stuff at you. And in the spirit of that, I don't know why that just came to mind with the Harvey McKay book, but we were talking earlier just in regards to hiring staff, everything else. It can be a bit of a nightmare. But you had a bit of a hack, and I thought it was worthwhile bringing it to the podcast. So why don't you tell us a bit about your hiring hack?
Nice. Agreed. Okay, so this is Elon Musk 101. Here's what he does. He asks somebody, what's a big problem that you've solved? And tell me in detail how you went about solving it, right? And then what he has found, most people will answer like at a surface level, and maybe, they'll go 2 layers deep. And the reason they stay on the surface, so they only go 2 layers deep, is they didn't really solve the big problem, right? So either somebody else solved it, or significantly worse, the problem wasn't actually solved, right? So the person that can answer, in detail, and let's say go 10 layers deep, about what happened, how it happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, the mistakes made, how they rectify them along the way. This is the person that really solved the problem. And then someone that can solve the same problem for you, or another problem that you could put in front of them, because they've got the bandwidth, the critical thinking skills to, follow something all the way through to solution, right? So I just thought, like, awesome question to get to know someone. Is tell me a big problem you solved, and in detail how you went about solving it. And I think their answer will be very, very telling in that regard, or at least that's what Elon Musk, that's his opinion. And he's known to hire some pretty smart people. So, it's like your client doesn't need more staff. Your client needs better staff. You don't need more staff. You need better staff. To find a better staff member, well, I think ask them that question and listen to their answer, and maybe go to and fro, back and forth a little bit. And I think that could be very telling. But anyway, so there's a little bit of Elon Musk 101, man, but that's the answer. That's what we talked about. There you go. What do you think?
Well, so when you're talking about, we talk about staff, we talk about a lot of this stuff. There's typically to-do lists that are always involved. But like, talk to me about like your clients' to-do lists rather than just your own. Can you talk about that for a sec?
Um, yeah, they're not getting their to-do list done. You're not getting yours done. I'm not getting mine done. Road Dog's not getting his done. So simply put, look, write a to-do list, and let's assume that there's 10 things that need to get done today. Isolate the top two biggest things, and guess what? Do those first. Knock those first over. And again, the question is like, what to knock over the other things on the list? Like if you've got 10 things to do, if you do two of them, do they knock over other things on your list and make them irrelevant? Right, which is really kind of 80-20, by the way. Remember, like a real mentor can tell you what not to do, right? So the flip side of that is that if you motivate an idiot, they do stupid things quicker, right? Or like what Tony Robbins would say, running in the wrong direction, enthusiastically looking for a sunset, not going to get you very far, right? So anybody can sit down with an entrepreneur and dramatically increase their to-do list. But what you really want to do, and the magic is to be able to simplify it, bring it back to the, really important critical things that knock over the other things on the list, right? So, and by the way, notwithstanding, if you want to be happy, create a done list rather than obsessing over your to-do list. And you might find that will give you significantly more momentum. That in this case, this will give your client significantly more momentum. So the bottom, really what's important there, sitting down with an entrepreneur, your client, and giving them more things to do can be incredibly counterproductive to the end goal. And that's having a great coach-client relationship with huge amounts of execution, huge amounts of implementation, getting a lot done, moving the needle, making the boat go faster, all kinds of metaphors you could throw in there. Giving a bunch more to do can be counterintuitive to that. So I'd be careful with that. But really assess the really important things to do using critical thinking skills to delve into that. So anyways, that's my answer, bud. What do you think?
Okay, so you mentioned 80-20 there. I just feel like it's just one of these things that's thrown out there all the time. Can you like break down like just what is 80-20? How do you actually use 80-20?
Okay. Well, first I would say this. You ask your client that they understand 80-20, and guess what they'll say? They'll say with ridiculous predictability, they say yes. But my opinion is that if you're not living it, then do you really know it? Right? It's like we talked about on the last podcast. I think it was studying versus training, right? Studying is sitting in the classroom, buying the course and going through learning. But training is doing it over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes instinctual, right? So what you want to train your client on is to use 80-20 as a mental model and get them to do it over and over and over again so that it becomes automatic, right? So like, okay, so 80-20 things, why is that important? Things in the 20 versus the 80 are 16 times as productive. But then the things in the further 20 are 64 times as productive as the original 80, right? And by the way, if you take a magnifying glass, and we've talked about this endless number of times on the podcast, but you go 80-20, 80-20, 80-20, 80-20, as in keep delving down, you end up at 150, right? So like 1% of the world owns 50% of the shoes, 1% of the world owns 50% of the watches, 1% pay 50% of the taxes, 1% own 50% of the wealth in the world, right? The folks like Musk, Bezos, Gates, Buffett, etc., right? So you need data to make good decisions, right? Like what does gut stand for? Gave up thinking. You'd be significantly better off by going with data than your gut. And that's not to minimize your gut. Sometimes it can, be an incredibly powerful tool, especially for the mothers listening. We recognize that. But generally speaking, in business, what you want to do is you want to go with the data as opposed to go with your gut, right? Like what 20% you're working with your client, and then you go to them and go, what 20% of your clients make up 80% of your revenues, right? What staff member provides 80% of the value? And by the way, as you're hearing that, and you go, is that actually the case? Remember, 80-20 is not an opinion. It's a universal law, right? I'm not getting away from it. Road Dog's not getting away from it. Your client isn't getting away from it, right? So like insane, what do they say? Insane speed requires immense clarity. Think of immense clarity as, really understanding that 80/20 and delving deep, right? You want to operate intelligently with urgency. Like a deadline can be a domino that knocks over all the other dominoes, right? And I don't need to meet with your client to know they got a bunch of things that they should do, that they're going to do on their, quote unquote, to-do list and their project list, but they don't have a deadline. So guess what? It just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, right? So a good example of that is the last time you went on vacation. You're leaving on Saturday with the family, and I don't need to sit with you on Friday to know that you had superpowers on that particular day. You got like 30 things done when you would normally tap out at 9, right? Because again, why? Because you've got that manufactured deadline and you just start knocking everything over. So again, what do? The anecdote to that is create manufactured deadlines, right? Where announce the presentation, announce the event, announce the new product, announce the campaign, press send on the campaign, and things tend to come together, and they will come together significantly faster, with that deadline than without. And without the deadline, not only do they not get done, but they just tend to continue to get pushed out. So anyway, so that's 80/20. Really importantly though, the things in the 20 are 16 times as productive as the things in the 80. So this is a really good idea for your client to do. But without your accountability, you're kicking the pants, your weekly or bi-weekly call, they tend not to get done, right? Like your clients always say, I did it because I knew the call was coming up. They didn't want to show up to the call and not have done the task and what they had agreed to, right? So that's a example of a manufactured deadline, but that's 80/20 shoots and do it over and over and over and over and over again. And that becomes just instinctual. And that's where the power is for you and your clients.
Okay. So I got a random one for you.
Yep.
Your opinion on business brokers.
My opinion on business bro. I've again spoken about this at different times, but business brokers, it's the wild, wild west. No fiduciary responsibility whatsoever. Like you could buy a business from a business broker or contemplate buying a business from a business broker, and they could literally provide you financial statements for the wrong company and there's no fallback, right? Like they're not responsible for anything. But they're a great resource, and we've got lots that are clients, and some are incredibly awesome, and then some aren't as good. They're a good, I can tell you, they're a great joint venture for a business coach. The reason why, the business broker will get 10 phone calls, and 9 of those 10 times they hang up the phone. Why do they hang up the phone? Because this person that business is not ready to be sold, so it's a bit of a waste of time. Right. So they could be a good joint venture partner, which should be stated. But like the M&A space and an investment banker is like the standard, right? Like if you're going to sell $100 million company, you're not going to the local business broker. You're going to an investment banker. And again, but you'd pay, there would be, a commitment. It'd be signed contracts. There's fiduciary responsibility at the other side of the table, et cetera. So anyway, so that's my, it's a bit of the wild, wild west. So I'll leave that there. In the interest of short answer shoots, let's leave that one there.
Yeah, and also in the interest of not offending business brokers, let's move it along. Kind of a broad one, so I'm very nervous about rabbit holes on this one, but just general advice on someone looking to start a second business.
Yeah. We hear it all the time. It falls under multiple streams of income, right? Bad idea. The person selling you the multiple streams of income probably has pathetic multiple streams of income. Be significantly better off dialing in on one stream of income. So what I use as a frame, because multiple streams of income, of course, that's a great idea. Anybody with any brains will tell you that that's a good thing. But the problem is that you need to build one stream of income to say $5 million, $400,000 a month. and then start thinking about the multiple streams of income, right? Then think about the investing in real estate, doing Airbnb. Remember, Bezos wasn't building Amazon and then doing Airbnb on the side, right? That was not happening. But there's a saying, the second business eats the first, which could be very relevant there. And then what the solution to that is, you need the second business to feed the first, right? And then if you were to ask me, how do you find a second business that feeds the first? If you follow Jeff Bezos, which apparently is a pretty good guy to follow, you go to your P&L. What's the number one expense, or the top 5 expenses on your P&L? Ideally the top one, but that might not be relevant. And that's potentially a business that you start. So how did Amazon Web Services, AWS, come about? Exactly that. Amazon was spending an absolute fortune. They started up Amazon Web Services, and literally day one became the best customer of AWS. And I would be amazed if they're not the number one customer of AWS as it stands today. And again, an insanely successful company in its own right. Forget about Amazon. Like, AWS is a monster, right? Like maybe you got a daycare who you're supporting, and then you go, okay, so they're paying $5,000 a month in rent. Well, one of the things they could think about is buying a property not too far away, renovating it. All of a sudden, they operate the daycare out of that facility. Long term, what they do is they sell the business, the daycare, and continue to own the property. And now they're collecting the $5,000 a month from the person that they sold the business to, right? So that could be an example. And you could do that. Think of, you got a chiropractor, you got a dentist, you got all kinds of clients that you're working with that you could potentially look at that. That's a long-term play, to be clear. Would I start there? The answer is absolutely not on average. Remember, when I start with a coaching client, I'm charging them, $2,000 to $5,000 a month, let's say. I would encourage you to get really tactical initially for those first 60 days, let's call it. Why? Because I want runs on the board. I want to move the needle. I want to be able to high five. And then you move into strategic. If you start with strategic, you don't get those small wins where you can high five, because again, strategy is often a step backwards to take 3 forwards. But the problem is, early on in that relationship, I don't really want to be taking the backward step. But anyway, so yeah, starting a second business, the second business eats the first. So if you're thinking about starting a second business, you really need to go, the second business feeds the first. So there's my answer, Shoots.
Okay, well, let's take a little pause and slow things down for a minute, Karl, shall we? And let's focus on our Zen. Yeah, you knew that was coming. You knew it was coming. So let's relax. Let's unwind. Everybody, let's take a deep breath and listen to Karl's thought of the day.
My Zen thought. Here's a quote from my email, I think, possibly today. It's Theodore Roosevelt. And he said, believe in yourself and you're halfway there. Sounds a little bit like a bit of a throwaway line, but the more I digested it, and kind of read it a few times, I have it on my phone, not as like a screensaver, but like just in, my notes where I go and revisit on a regular basis. But I thought, there's power in that. As an entrepreneur, it is a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster for Road Dogg. It's a roller coaster for me, and it's a roller coaster for you, and it's a roller coaster for your clients. Just, believing in yourself, you're halfway there. Like, because beliefs are what you think. Belief is what you think is true, and then values are what you think is important, right? So like, nobody knows what the hell they're doing, right? This is the PhDs, the famous CEOs, the top performers, the influencers. We're all just, they're all just making it up as they bloody go. So you got to stay out of your head. I think it's Mel Robbins. She says that when you're in your head, you're behind enemy lines, right? And speaking of enemy lines, it makes me think of if you haven't read Elon Musk's autobiography by Walter Isaacson, it's just an insanely good example. I mean, the guy's the richest man in the world, and he's literally hiding under his desk. And I laugh, by the way. I don't, I ain't laughing because I understand at an intimate level, you know what I mean? Just kind of where he was at, etc. And so, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, what am I trying to say? Ready, fire, aim. Don't try just, don't try work it out. Don't fall into plan. Just next action, next action, next action. Like the crazy ones make all the money. All right. So what I do, last time I did business coaching mastery in Mexico, I got, a couple signs up on stage with me and I turn them about. But on day one, the first one that looks, it's looking straight at the audience. Crazy ones make all the money. And you just look at Elon and many, many others. I think that all of a sudden starts to make a little bit of sense. And does that mean act crazy? No. But what it is, you just need to be a ruthless risk taker. And let's face it, that takes a little bit of, guts. It's like you're as old as the risks that you're willing to take. Right? Like think of aging as not growing old with wrinkles and, the face starting to droop a little bit, right? I saw myself on Zoom the other day where I was like, what the heck's going on here? So yeah, my face feel like it's drooping a little bit, but like your decline, is because you organically become overly cautious, right? Fearful of losing what you have, fearful of losing what you own, right? Like youth is that energy of taking risk and trusting yourself that you're just going to get there, right? Just think of a young athlete versus an old. I played some beer league hockey in my day, and I played lots of hockey when I was a kid. When I was a kid, like it was just like flat out, as a beer league hockey player. I want to make sure that I get through the game unscathed. Yeah, I want to pot a couple goals and pass the puck around, and certainly want to win. But you know what I mean. If you watched, I would be described as a bit cautious out there for sure. That is not the way. And then if you watch the playoffs, by the way, even in beer league, it's a total different dynamic. I want you to take that. You want to operate like a professional athlete, playing to make the playoffs, and then to win the playoffs. Very, very different approaches, right? So I don't know. I just kind of taking risks. Like a letter to your younger self should be 3 words. And you know what it is? You made it. So I would suggest that writing a letter to yourself now from your future self of you made it, it might just take a little bit of pressure off, just so freeing, like Karl, it all works out for you. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Does that sound freeing to you? And that is the way that it'll work out. It will all work out, right? Nobody's getting out alive. And like successful people aren't motivated. They're driven, right? And being driven towards passion, being driven towards purpose. It's the ultimate way to stay youthful, right? To stay in, like youthfulness. I'm trying to think of another word. But anyway, like youthful, right? To stay young, right? To stay young. My grad song when I graduated was Forever Young. And ironically, I may or may not have listened to that song this morning by Rod Stewart. I love that song. I think it's awesome. If I'm in one of those moods or I need a bit of a pep me up, I use that one. And part of why I do, and kind of what I was thinking about as I was listening to it this morning, it was like, kind of, it brings me back to graduation and being 17 years old. And I think what I'm trying to say here, Shoots, to be successful as an entrepreneur, you got to be in the youthful space, not in the cautious, I don't want to get injured and I just want to get home to my family space, right? So like Peter Thiel, the original, the first investor in Facebook with Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel says courage is in much shorter supply than genius, right? Translation, operate with courage. I think you'll stay young. Stay young sounds cheesy, but anyway, so there Shoots, that's all I got, bud. But I do think believe in yourself and you're halfway there. I think that's just got, and values are what you think is important, right? Beliefs are what you think is true, but values are what you think is important. I think there's magic in that, and you make it. It all works out, folks. Keep going. Next action. It'll work out. What I got, Shoots.
You want to guess what my grad song was?
I have no idea, Shoots. I'm thinking No, I was gonna.
I wanted there you go. First thing that came to your head. What was it?
I don't even want to say it. Crazy for You by Madonna is what I was gonna
Oh
say.
my God. That's for
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not saying this, but now I just said it.
that's you just did. No, not that, and not Papa Don't Preach either.
Oh, Papa Don't Preach.
Listen, anybody that's a regular on this podcast knows you like that song. Scorpions, Wind of Change. That's
What is it?
That was
what?
Scorpions, the Wind of Change.
Oh, there you go. Scorpions.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to add, and then we're going to close this out here. But I just want to add, when you said the 3 words that you should be going to, like, you made it.
Yeah. Like?
Yeah, I love. Because what does that mean to you? What does that look like? You made it. What does that like? I think everybody should just seriously just in the Zen thought and the theme, just meditate on that. Like, just take your total time to think and spend 30 minutes on what if you just sat there and said you made it. What does that look like to you? And I bet you the amount of clarity somebody would get from that would be huge.
Yeah. Actually, you want me to give you an example? I was actually literally talking to my dad about this morning. So I played in the hockey tournament many moons ago, right? It was nationals. And so I found out, so we were playing in the final, right? And I found out before the final that I had won MVP. And again, I was very pleased with that, as you could probably imagine. But you know what? The game, it was a big game, obviously, right? But you know what? For some reason, like you made it, I kind of like, there was like a huge, I don't know, sense of relief. Sense of relief is not the right way to word it, but no doubt you could understand that I felt very, very, oh, wow, cool. And that's pretty neat. Well, I went out in that final and I just played like just no pressure. Because one of the problems, what happens when you go in a game that really means a lot, you can hold your stick a little bit too tight, right? Well, it was the exact opposite, because I was just kind of out there and I was just like, I was very, I mean, I don't know. So it was like, you made it, like you're good, right? So even if you don't win this, there's some accolades coming your way. And it was all about, and I understand it was all about the team big time, but it provided a bit of a sense of relief. And I was talking to my dad about that. And then he was like, well, you guess what? You got the MVP. Just chill out, man. Step by step, neck action. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, kid. Right? So anyways, I don't know. You made it. I agree. Huge. That can provide a lot of relief. And I think what you're saying, Shoots, is that it will mean something different for everybody. Right? And so by just going, you made it, to yourself, the family, everything works out for the family. Everything works out for the finances. Everything works out for the business. And if it doesn't, what ends up happening is something better, right? Because again, you learned and then you change course, etc. So anyways, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Shoots.
All right. So before I ask you for the one thing, and of course, as we always say every week, I don't want to timestamp this, but I'm going to timestamp this. You have to address it, dude. Ovi, let's go. Grade 8. You want to, dude.
Shoots. Okay, for those non-hockey folks, so Ovechkin beat Wayne Gretzky's goal record that they thought, even Ovechkin not that long ago said this is a record that will not be broken. And I honestly, if you asked me 3 years ago, because I know he was on kind of pace, but I would have bet against him very comfortably. But yeah, Alexander Ovechkin, man, number 1 goal scorer of all time. And when you look at the size of the goal, like goalies back in the day were like 5'7", and now they're like 6'6", and their pads are huge, and the net is the exact same size. So it's pretty darn impressive. And I'll just say this though, but shoot, you would have seen one of the memes that shows the goalies back in the day, and yeah, they were 5'7", and the equipment was significantly smaller, but also Gretzky was using a stick that was like carrying around a 2x4, and the curve on it was very, very lame. And if you wanted to improve your curve, you had to heat up this, use like we used to use, what do you call what is it?
A blowtorch, like those little.
Yeah. A blowtorch, right? And then that significantly weakens your blade. So anyway, so there's nuances to it all, but what he achieved is just hats off, man. It's
And
nothing.
that's also when sticks were to $500. They were like $25 down at Canadian Tire. So there you go.
Yeah,
Okay?
for five, and they never broke, man. They just like wore down. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's it is impressive. What struck me was, what did it say? It's like time between the record being broken was like 33 years and 11 days or something like that. I'm like, oh my God. Like it's pretty impressive how long, and I don't know if it'll ever be broken again. Like it's pretty impressive, man. And again, Ovechkin was hurt for quite a bit, but good for him. So shout out to OV8. Now, on that note, back to the podcast. Close us out. What's the one thing that you think somebody could take from today's episode and implement into their business to see some pretty quick?
I think I'm going to just go like Elon Musk, right? We talked about it in the pre-show. Like asking, just the power of that. A question, thinking is nothing more than asking and answering questions to yourself. Huge power. If you ask the right question, you're, significantly further, you're halfway there and beyond. By asking somebody, what's a big problem? Like, give me a big problem that you solve and then define for me in detail exactly how you went about solving it. I think there's huge power in that in a number of different areas. And of course, you could take a variation of that and for, different situations. But I think that's huge, man. I think everybody should be, that's a writer downer and digesting. And we talked about 80-20. Again, 80-20, just think studying and then training. You're just never going to go wrong. Never going to go wrong by taking 80-20, implementing it as a business, training it, over and over and over and over and over again, so that 80-20 becomes instinctual for you. It becomes instinctual for your clients. I think that's crazy power. So anyway, Shoots, that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I would just say that's so good, man. Like, just because sometimes just by changing the question slightly, and still, it's sort of like saying, hey, what do you want? A tough one. What kind of life do you want? What's your dream life look like? What about just reframing it, just like Karl had said earlier, of we made it. Define that. What does that look like, right? So again, it's asking yourself those questions. So I absolutely love that. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. And if you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or you just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching company, visit focused.com and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach, as we're trying to make our impact on the coaching community. And while you're at it, please feel free to leave us a review. And that is it for another week, everybody. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.